Thank you so much. Let me just pull up my remarks. So as John said, I don't know how many of you, if any really, got a chance to see us 5 years ago when we stood on the steps of the Supreme Court. Excellent. So you guys are paying attention. The reason and you shouldn't feel bad if you didn't, Big Tech took us all down in about, by 8 p.m. that night. So I think we were standing about 2 or 3 p.m. And by 8 p.m. we were actually off, and we'd already garnered 20 million views. And I used to joke, it's not because I can sing like Beyonce, right? How do you get 20 million views in such a short time? It's only truth. People recognize truth when they hear it. So the world, it just went super viral. And then of course, Big Tech had to shut us down, and we've been off to the races ever since. Before we really get started with our program, which by the way, we will be streaming out and doctors are gonna watch it, continuing medical education. We're just gonna have a lot of people see this content, so thank you for being here. You guys are really the front lines. You guys will share it, and you'll share it, and you'll share it. But before we really get started and jump into it, we've got an amazing, amazing panel of speakers. I just want to take a moment and remember, and I'm going to get a little emotional, which is not so common for me. I just want to remember a dear friend who was supposed to be here today as one of our speakers. He was an early America's Frontline doctor, and I just want to spend like 3 minutes maybe talking about him, explaining who he is, and just to greet his family. So I apologize. I've done hundreds of speeches. I don't think you ever can catch me being emotional at any of them. Okay, so when I started this crazy journey in 2020, I really didn't know what I didn't know about people, right? I'm a doctor. Mostly, in general, doctors and nurses mean well for patients. They're kind-hearted. They're good people. So when I was plunged into this world, one of my first experiences was the media flat out lying about me. And it happened over and over again. And it got worse. This was before I became famous. The AP wrote nasty stuff about me, and I just was very taken off guard. I wouldn't say I was naive exactly. I was, I was a full-grown woman. I had a lot of credentials behind my name, but maybe doctors I felt were a little bit immune from being mocked like that or being lied about. So that was really my entrance. Wow, people are nasty. And I also then started experiencing people having very ulterior motives, which I couldn't know because I was busy doing my own thing, but they would come up and they'd ask me things, and they really had another agenda. So I got pretty leery of people. So around that time is when I met Dr. John Thomas. I start with this because he was so kind, so authentic, so honorable, and the old me would have loved him immediately. But the new, more cynical me, my first thought is like, oh, is this guy for real? Like I was pretty cynical, and then over time I learned he did a lot of mission trips across the world, and he'd been doing it for decades. And I was thinking, oh, maybe this guy's for real, maybe he's not, maybe he doesn't have an ulterior motive. But that was my worldview at the time, and I mentioned that because it was because he was repeatedly kind to me. He repeatedly looked out for opportunities to help frontline doctors to make it better. I had some particular trouble at one point. He actually flew from Texas to Florida just to kind of help me with that trouble, that never asked for anything in return ever. So what happened was, I think he'd be surprised to learn how upset I was. So he got sick last year, and then he had a fatal event not too long ago, and he passed. And my team called me to tell me, and I was actually pretty devastated. And I just want to share with you, this is a good person, a good human, and I don't want him to be forgotten just because he's not here today. Okay, just because he's not physically here today. I also would like to say a few words to his son, Andrew. I can't say anything about what it's like to lose, a dad at a young age. That I don't know. But I do know a little bit about grief and mourning, and excuse me if I'm overstepping a little bit, but you have to still go on and live your life, because that's the only option open to you, and it is to honor your mother and your father, and you go on. When my father died, and I was much older, when my father died, I remember feeling a bit embarrassed the first time, it wasn't the first thought in my head, like, oh my gosh, I was happy, or I laughed, or something good happened, and it wasn't my first thought. I remember feeling very, very guilty about that, and I just wanted to share with you, no, your father was an incredible man, like a great man, like not a good man, a great man, and you should carry that with you. You should make him proud. You should make your mother proud. And I would just wanted to present Dr. John Thomas with, posthumously, unfortunately, a humanitarian award from Frontline Doctors. If that's all right, if you would just come up here and accept it. Thank you so much. So I just want to say thank you for coming out here. I wanted you to hear from me how much I thought of your dad and how much we all thought of your dad. So we have a letter from us and a picture from the day, like we went through Lubbock. We've come a couple times now, but that was the first time. And then this is our award. He was the champion. He was the champion of human life. He was the champion of human life, and that's really who your dad was. And many of you don't know, or maybe do you know that I'm Jewish, and in Jewish law, there's a concept called pikuah nefesh. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but pikuah nefesh is the most important thing you can do in this world, which is to save a life, to help heal a life, to save a life. A lot of doctors kind of feel it. Your dad really felt it. He really followed that commandment of pikuah nefesh, which is to save a life. That was your dad. So I just want to say, God bless John Thomas. God bless his family. Okay? I'll put it back here. Okay. You got it? Here you go. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bless you. Okay. Thank you for hearing all about John Thomas, who is a wonderful, wonderful man. Okay. So, may I just... All right. We are in for a treat. So, I guess my slide one. Por favor. Okay, pretty soon it will show up. Awesome. Right? I should yeah. Many of these people are here with us today. There's John Thomas. Many of you will recognize Stella and Dr. Farella. There's other folks. I'm trying to think who else is here today speaking. Dr. McDonald, he was the psychiatrist who spoke out about all the fear. He wrote a book called Divided States of America. Dr. Richard Bartlett is there. Dr. Eric Naputi. United States of Fear, my apologies. Anyway, this is the iconic image that introduced us to the world. 5 years ago, we stood on the steps of the Supreme Court and we told the truth. Not the popular opinion, not the political narrative, but the truth. We told you that lockdowns were a lie, that 6-foot social distancing was a lie, that children should be in school, that early treatment was available if you should want it, that America could not survive under the spiderweb of fear that was being wrapped around us. That day didn't just spark headlines. It launched a movement which became Frontline Doctors. Since that time, we've become the leading voice for medical freedom. Just in the last year, we have filed more than a dozen amici briefs in major federal and Supreme Court cases. Amici briefs are what's known as friend of the court. So if somebody is doing a lawsuit that you think is related to an issue that you have knowledge about and you can offer expertise on, you can come in and join not as a litigant, but as somebody who writes papers to explain the issue to the court. Amici briefs are very important for a lot of reasons. In the lane that we're in, which is free speech for physicians, informed consent, parental rights, specifically on the medical mutilation of our children, we are often either the only physician organization that is informing the court on complicated issues, or maybe there's one other. For example, the American Medical Association, which you should go, hiss, American College of Gynecology, American College of Pediatrics, they're all in favor of things which none of us in this room believe. So what is the court to do? The court is looking at the legal paper, the legal arguments, but it's very helpful to the court if they start getting information from doctors and medical freedom doctors about what these issues really are. So that is a very big thing we do. We fought hard in a free speech case. It happened to be my own case. It was Dr. Gold versus the California Medical Board, which wanted to silence me for speaking on early treatment. It took 3 years, but we won, and it's huge because that's a precedent in California, which a lot of states look to because it's such a large state, and they tried to silence me for speaking on ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. They kind of won a little bit at a lower level, but they flat out lost on appeal, so that's now precedent, and that's a big deal, I think, for California doctors going forward. We petitioned the FDA to make hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin over the counter. What were the choke points in 2020, 2021, 22? If you wanted to take these medicines, you had to find a doctor who hadn't drunk the Kool-Aid, and if you were so lucky as to find that, and you went to a chain pharmacy, good luck to you. Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, all of them, they wouldn't fill these prescriptions, okay? So we work hard to make solutions for you. I would like you to get cheap, safe, generic medicine, just by going to the drugstore yourself. And when you look at the public data on hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, incredibly safe. They should not be behind this guardrail, which then can be exploited by people who want to use that as a choke point for your freedom. We released a documentary, What is a Doctor?, which exposed the politicization of the medical mutilation of our children. Honestly, I urge you to grab that QR code. It's streaming on Salem right now. It's an unbelievable conversation. It's a documentary, doctors sitting around explaining what's actually happening when they tell you they're having gender-affirming care. And you'll hear straight from doctors what it really is. It's a misnomer, and worse. Please leave that slide up. Created the trans predators watch list to expose the bad actors mutilating our children. If you put 2 of these doctors in jail, the other doctors will stop doing this. Now, you haven't heard as much about this because President Trump is on the same side, but if, God forbid, we weren't living in that world, this would rear its head. And we produce an endless array of educational video and news content so you can hear the truth without filters. You can find all of that at aflds.org, A as F as in Frank, LDS.org. But let's pause for a moment because this journey wasn't an abstract for me. It's been really personal. For daring to speak the truth, I was arrested by the FBI, thrown into a cell, branded a terrorist by my own government. My teenage son, who was asleep in his bed in Los Angeles on January 6th, was followed by the TSA agents. He too was put on this watch list. My bank accounts were flagged, my reputation was attacked, and I was sentenced by a system that knew the accusations were false but refused to correct them. I don't know if you've seen the news in the last couple of days, but it's been absolutely confirmed that there were hundreds of undercover informants from the FBI present on January 6th. You know how they said, oh, there's none, and then they're like, oh, well, there's 2, or maybe there's 5. Yeah, no, we knew that there were hundreds. I think there was, I can't say. The FBI so far has said that there's hundreds. So I tell the story in my book, Selective Persecution, next slide. Selective Persecution, the Legalization of American Fascism. And I did not write it as a pundit. I wrote it as a witness, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. Later today, I'll be out there to sign books, and I hope you'll join me. Not because the story is about me. I use my story to explain to you what actually can happen when a government decides the truth itself is a crime. Here's the greater truth, though. The persecution did not destroy me. Iron sharpens iron, yes? It made me more determined than ever to build solutions so no American is ever again trapped in a system of lies. Again, there's so many reasons for this, but we saw in 2020, people were so vulnerable to medical fear that otherwise freedom-loving people literally just gave up their rights. I was astonished by that. There were plenty of people who believed what we believed, but were just afraid. So that medical fear, fighting propaganda is actually, I think, existential to our nation's safety. I mean, if you just willingly give up your constitutional freedoms, then you don't have to have a war to give them up. So we have to make sure people never again fall prey to medical fear, and it turns out you just have to combat the propaganda. That's why this day matters, because it's not just about what's wrong, it's about what comes next. We cannot spend our lives cursing the darkness. We must build a light. Next slide. We have to build a new system of medicine rooted in truth and ethics. We have to create schools and churches that teach children to love freedom more than comfort. That means constructing businesses and communities where integrity is the foundation and no one is forced to choose between their conscience and their livelihood. And you're going to hear stories about that today, about people who really had to choose between their conscience and livelihood, and I lived it, and I'm telling you, it was impossible to stay in the system, which I call the medical industrial complex, and live with integrity. It was impossible. It wasn't difficult, it wasn't close to, it was impossible. If you were a nurse in the ER during the COVID days, you were required to do things that I think completely violated any sense of normalcy and ethics. I want to remind people, in World War II, it was legal to kill Jews. It just didn't happen to be so moral, okay? That was the position we put in, not exactly those stakes, but close. And so we never again can have a situation where people choose between their livelihood and their conscience. The future of this nation, though, is not going to be saved by Washington. It's going to be saved by ordinary Americans who build extraordinary alternatives, alternative businesses. That's how you pressure the system. And today you're going to hear from extraordinary men and women, doctors, lawyers, whistleblowers, and patriots who risked everything to tell the truth when it mattered. Each one of them could have stayed silent. Each one of them could have chosen the easy road, but they didn't. So let's begin this day with courage, with gratitude, with determination. Because together we are not simply survivors of the last 5 years, we are the builders of the new America. Welcome to the Freedom Summit.
Subscribe and stay tuned to this channel. The entire speaker series from Freedom Summit 2025 will debut here over the next few days. Thank you.